Hello and welcome to this level 4 video. This is going to be video 3 of 3, talking about the third boss within the external system structure of our energetic system as a whole. So welcome to this video. If you are new, as I've been kind of saying in these last few videos, this is probably not the best place to just jump in and watch a random video. If this kind of energetic systems language is intriguing to you, I definitely suggest checking out the description and finding the level 1 videos and starting there and using your time more wisely to watch those foundational concepts first and then build up here into level 4. Because this video is just a tiny slice of a pie, a very specific perspective out of the whole sort of building. So it's really important to understand the building and where it is and what we're talking about before we look at this tiny little view here on level 4. But with that said, for those of us who are not new and who have been keeping up with these videos, thank you as always for your audience. I appreciate everyone who listens. And I hope that you are receiving lots of knowledge points for yourself in your own interpretations and taking them, off the screen, away from this time when you watch the video, and allowing them to sort of seep in and build things for you and come to different conclusions, different ideas and stuff on your own. That's really why and what I'm hoping to inspire here with these videos, as always. So let's jump right in to what I want to talk about today, which is this third boss and the third layer of our external systems, which is the spirit, the flow, that intangible, lemniscatic, balancing act of passing back and forth. And what are we passing back and forth, and what's happening, remember, is these other two layers and bodies, consciousnesses, the bosses, right, of the other external systems, that external working and inner workings, right, that we talked about in the bosses 1 and 2 already. Basically, as with all these system structures, the purpose and functionality are like general templates, right? And so since we've already kind of been through the same sort of procession, we understand more clearly what kind of work is going to be offered here for this third boss, the spirit of the external systems. Now, much like every other video that I've talked about here with the bosses, these layers create sort of a reality bubble, a concept, or dream world, whatever you want to see this as, an interpretation level layer that is specific and has specific qualities, and that mirrors and is similar to and speaks similar language to the other reflections that are seen within the systems, right? So other layers of spirit bosses speak more directly and more clearly with each other within the systems than they do with the other the body boss, say, and that mind boss, right? And similarly, as I talked about with the other bosses, the mind's inner boss, it speaks directly with the inner core workings, and it speaks more directly and more fluently with the inner bosses within all systems. So your external system, as we're talking about here with level 4, that inner boss speaks more directly with the inner core, and that inner boss within the inner core, because there, remember, is the external boss within the inner core. Just like there's the external boss that we talked about with the external systems. And that external body boss speaks more fluently and more directly to the body and to the external workings of the inner core as well, those body workings, right? Its themes and concepts, this is how fractals end up reflecting each other, right? How the concept of templates and the design and manyness really has variations and possibilities present themselves. We have to really ground and remember that that's the work at hand. That is the purpose. So It can be chaotic, it can be easy to get lost in, things can sound a bit repetitive, and yes, they are, and it is, but there's a beauty to it. That doesn't mean there isn't a harmony, a melody to be heard and followed. So let's talk about the melody of the spirit and the external systems. And in general, the concept of this spirit, intangible flow, the observer, right, that is reflected in the spirit layer. It's a bit like balancing the books, especially when we're talking now directly just about the external systems. Because as I talked about so far in level 4, right, external systems are obviously, exterior. They are exteriorly focused. They have to do with others and things that are not just us in our inner system. And the variety is just endless. And with that kind of infinite playground at our fingertips, right, it's so crucial to hold it lightly, right, to keep a space open for all things as best as we can, and to really just try to be the observer. That's the main feel, atmosphere, and the attitude of the spirit boss, especially externally focused here, is that all things are possible between the gradient of dark and light, of positive and negative. And the allowance and the observation is necessary. You have to have a data set, a placeholder for all coordinates in it, in order to look at this substrate of information, right? In order to gather up commonalities, to see patterns, to recognize, organization at a higher level, more complexities. So the spirit external boss, when we look to sort of define it and see what it's doing, right? Let's try to hold open space and remember that it is never end all be all. It's not a cut and dry kind of black and white thing. It is ever changing, ever flowing, and that's the purpose of it. And if and when we are ever trying to force it into these sort of predictive snapshot occurrences or positions or perspectives, that's restrictive and negative, right? That is a form of control that we want to try to back away from and not be infringing upon others, because it's unfair and it's unrealistic, and it's actually really not even helpful to the progression of the whole. It's actually deterrent. It causes stagnation. It causes holding back. And with that kind of energy, it creates what we're seeing, instability and distortions and lots of negative energy. And you can be experiencing that. We all experience that. And again, this is why I'm bringing this up and positioning it sort of in this way, because it's an ever back and forth flow. It's a balancing of the books. It's a give and a take of negative and positives happening in so many layers that it's unfair and untrue to try to take a snapshot and say that this is it, so this is it forever. This is how it's been, and this is how it will be. Let's try to just get away from even setting those kind of markers and just relax more into the present now and observation and acceptance of what we are seeing. And then from that place of observation, we can offer solutions to be worked with, not force certain goals or fixes or whatever from our perspective onto the rest. If you catch what I'm trying to say here, we should be looking at ourselves like that. This is what the spirit's external boss, is really trying to get us to learn and work with when we are ruminating on that and getting in touch with them. Now, the topic at hand when we speak about the spirit's boss is polarity, is your service orientation, whether your service to self or service to others. And I started with this sort of snapshot comparison and trying to get us away from that to really then turn our gaze at polarity, to understand ourselves better, to understand others better, and to know that these things we call service to self and these things that we call service to others, it's not so black and white. And it's more of an alignment that you're setting up a directionality towards and calling your true north, doing some course correcting against that kind of directionality versus it being you and you are positive or you are negative, you are service to self or service to others. And thinking there's a camp of people who reside on the side with you and a camp of people who reside on the side against you. Because it isn't. It's a pulsating vibration back and forth where we, as individuals and collectively, hold and present out and act out all these roles, give and take back and forth, here and there. And it is the back and forth that creates sort of the the momentum to then we have an orientation and an alignment and directionality. But it's made up of many, many different tiny parts. Just like the snapshot thing. It is a moving picture made of many small images, one snapshot at a time. But is it fair to pull out just one image and picture and say, this is me forever? This is me? No, it's not. Or this is the whole movie, right? If you're more of like film oriented, to take a single scene out of the whole movie and to one image of people standing still and to say that's the whole meaning of life, and it's not fair. I won't get into like the whole metaphor that I love to talk about with a butterfly, but trying to capture flight and the essence of organic life of a butterfly, and you want to kill it and pin it down and study its anatomy and physiology. It doesn't really compute. Doesn't seem like it's relevant to make assumptions when things are so different. But anyways, let's try to hold this while we're talking about the spirit boss and when you think about yourself and your polarity and others. And let's actually talk about polarity for a minute and how it presents itself and what it means. So I'm going to sort of phrase this more in the organic model and talk about positive alignment. Like I say, I'm kind of biased towards that. I feel like that is better progression, and that's the line of ascension that humanity is really should gravitate towards, and so I'll probably present it more in a way that about talking about the positive alignment. When we are sort of running our Taurus tool and our whole self of this energy systems as a whole, totality, right, when we're functioning in this organic alignment, we have, as I talked about from the start, with this organically negatively aligned inner core, pulling in and running a service to self, sort of presenting itself negative system inside there, drawing in and pushing out. And then we have the balancing act of our external torrido, which is doing the opposite. It has a more positively aligned system, which instead of drawing in from the top, it pushes out from the top. And it pushes out service freely, and then it draws in through the roots, and it brings in energy and nutrients and things, retribution from its service, up and into itself through an organic way of drawing in through the roots and the bottom layers of you, and that which meets the earth. We see it in nature, so effortlessly happening, because it goes with the flow. And as we've built this system and this whole series, and you see how they feed each other and they keep this ever going positive, pay it forward style momentum. And when we have this great balancing act happening between the two, the contrasting negative and positive systems feeding each other and then interacting out in the external world with a positive flow, seeking to align in other positive systems and find other resonances that are vibrating in its sort of high frequencies, and to offer its service in there and to be a part of the wholes out there that would like to receive it, right? When we have this good balancing act, we are balancing our books. Our spirit boss is, in tune with these other two bosses who are running the body and running the mind. and they create a give and a take. You know, it's a balancing of the books, just like when I had the banking model, right? The corporate banking model and the transaction of currencies, right, is a stolen idea. It's mirrored and inverted of our natural, organic, energetic currencies that we're offering and being a part of, and doing our bank out of here. And just like a bank shares money back and forth, it doesn't really look at money going out or coming in as bad or good. It's doing business either way. It's just black or red. It's just negative or positive. But it's never about that single transaction anyway during the day, really, to the bank, right? It's about the overall at the end of the day, or the overall at the end of the fiscal year or the quarter, or whenever your sort of balancing act with like that snapshot image taken of it, right? And our energy and our spirit boss in working with our external systems is exactly like that, and we should look at it like that. It's not about bad or good, but all of these workings that we're doing all day long are balancing acts between each other, negative and positive. Some of the negative things that seem to be, quote unquote bad, if you look called negative bad, they end up balancing and giving great contrast to the other sort of positive, quote unquote good actions that we have within us. And it's the spirit's role to hold space for both of those and to just ding them on sort of the balance sheet as it goes, and to showcase that and to do the balancing act of the work, right? Because there's a residue after or a charge, a collection that happens, whether at the end of the day, whether it's positive or negative. And that'll be in alignment with what your truths are, and whether you're determined with an alignment of negativity or positivity. Service to all, to yourself, to the great other, to, the whole picture? Or do you have a segregated version? Do you have a distorted version of what your service should be designed to be offered at? And if you do, then just know that restriction of service creates negative balance. It creates this distortion that requires a certain perspective to view it, right? And when you make those type of requirements, it's right. You're saying you're only taking in, observing, and acknowledging this certain set of values of energy, and that in itself is, not the complete truth to the whole picture, because there is a whole. There's a before and an after, right? If you agree to that. And so, like I said, the polarity here is determined on where your truths are. And so let's just take before we end, I'm going to take a quick look at both sides of service. And I sort of gave the model already, and I've talked about both of the models sort of, but we have this negatively aligned service to self model, where if you have chosen this, instead of having a negative inner core model and a positive external, you have the negative drawing in the external service. The outer body is seeking to draw in and seeking to bring things in, and it has a very survival mindset, In the external, you have to bring things in to keep your inner flowing, because the inner core is inverted and pushing out and flowing always and pushing up, and it always needs more to keep going, obviously. If you're, I've already talked a bit about that, so I won't get too much into that. But anyways, depending on which truths you're telling and which kind of operations your Taurus is doing, your spirit boss, is going to be aligned in a certain way. It's going to be seeking to align the rest of all the conversations, all the energy and momentum that's happening, the transactions, the energy exchanges that are really happening, right? It's the overall collection the boss will be seeking to balance his books at the end of the day, right? It's either telling itself it has to have a positive balance at the end of the day, or it's telling itself it has to have a negative balance at the end of the day. And what does that look like kind of in real life? Or what does the laws look like when we set them up for ourselves, right? I'm just looking here at my notes. When we have this more negative style happening within us, our polarity and our systems will run on these truths that are debt-based. It says that it requires an energy input. It has service requested of it, right? And others who interact with it will have requests put upon them. It's limited in its processes, opportunities, and exchanges. It has secret and enclosed transactions. It's rooted in survival of the system itself. And that truth and that root in survival will and always promotes an atmosphere of control and restriction of the flow of energy. And it will create a hierarchy of directionality that forces a top-down flow, that has somebody who knows the most at the very top and everybody down below knows a little bit less and is involved a little bit less in the true system workings, not in the work involved, because as you go down, the actual laborious work becomes more, right? The actual process work and the point of the functionality becomes more involved the lower that you go in this hierarchy. We have every model out there, plain as day, pretty much, to show us how that works. Conversely, right, if we have a positive model, our spirit at the end of the day, right, our truths and all of these things that are running all of our systems will be in this more positively aligned seeking. And that means that the service energy that it has within it, its gifts, talents, what it wants to do, what it is offered freely. It has energy inside of it that it would like to offer out freely, and it taps into that as it's presenting itself with exchanges and transactions out in the world, looking to offer its service. It is, instead of being a debt-based system where everything is about paying off something and having enough to keep going, this is the opposite style system where it has enough to already go, and it's service-based. It's about doing, you know. This is why they're kind of opposites. Anyways, the other truth it will tell itself, right, is that it's unlimited in its processes, opportunities, and exchanges, that it makes its opportunities and exchanges, and that they're never ending out there in the external universe as well. And it has transparent transactions. It seeks more open and transparent transactions, right? Where conversely, negatively based structures will always seek to have a bit of backdoor, to have a bit of behind the scenes, to have a board, to, you know, behind the scenes, or whatever the case is. Anyways, it is rooted in truth, as in the one truth that all are here with purpose, divinely designed in whatever this beautiful play is, right? And it's rooted in respect for others, common sovereign respect, and unconditional love. And this creates a flow or an atmosphere of energy that's open and that allows free-flowing directionality of information. Anybody can speak to anybody that they choose to and say what they want to and share it with them. And that person is free to receive it, to like it, to not, to pass it on, or not. But there's not a forced directionality of flow of who could talk to who and who's allowed to give whom directions, right, and all that kind of stuff that we see, you know, modeled in a corporate hierarchy. This is much different. This is like saying that a worker in a warehouse who's doing the packing and the shipping for this giant Fortune 500 logistics company would be free and able and allowed, and in the same vicinity, building an area, floor and level, as to get up out of their working place, packing the package that day, and to go right to the CEO's office and to say, hey, I don't feel good right now. I have to go home. I'm unwell. I ate something bad, or whatever the case is. You know, my kid is young and at daycare and I got sick and I need to go home. Can you do my job for me? And that CEO would say, yeah, sure, no problem. I'll figure it out. And that would be allowed and okayed and accepted. And that CEO would, whether they had to delegate it off to somebody who was willing to fill in like that, or whether they themselves says, wow, I haven't packed a package in a long time. Let me go down on the floor and do some of that for a little while until we figure something else out, right? And they go down and do that job because they came through that job. They've worked through that layer. they have unconditional acceptance and love, not only for the worker themselves, but for the position and the job and the whole, because they built that business. That is their system totality whole, that business. There would, there's more to that. There's way more to those metaphors and stuff like that, but that's just a general idea of how you are free to speak and move and offer up and switch up functionality, responsibilities, and what is like expected behaviors from tiny cogs in the processes to larger bosses and managers and overall systems, right? Between the two types of ideas of how systems can flow and how organization, information, and energy can transact and change and flow within a system. And what's expected and acceptable and what is not, right? When we look at positive systems and when we want to hold a more open space for those, we see those things becoming possible. We see more that, yeah, actually that could happen. In an atmosphere like that could be acceptable, instead of saying that would never happen because of X, Y, and Z. That's, I think, where I'm going to leave it. I went a little bit over time than I wanted to keep this around 20 minutes. But I wanted to sort of give a quick idea of not just what the bosses in themselves, this sort of visuals and introspective work that we can do, but also to kind of show more external 3D ideas and how they present themselves out in the world and how we present ourselves with these systems out there, so that you can hopefully reflect more clearly on what you're doing and break it down into these more open areas so that you can see your own sort of reflections, your own working in systems, and do some good work for yourself. I know I have been doing this on the side of my own work before making these videos and before, working through the course books and stuff. And also just again, as going through it myself again in real time making the video, then it's giving me, beautiful epiphanies, unlocking all these doors and these new workings. And my life is becoming more comfortable, happy, enjoyable. And so I'm hoping to inspire that in others as well. I'm hoping that others will do work like that and find that open space and freedom in their own lives and start to really enjoy their lives too. And the systems they're a part of and want to be a part of, and saying no to systems we don't want to be a part of, right? And drawing the line and standing for yourself and your systems and offering them to things that feel good for you and feel right for you, instead of, denying yourself that and creating lies and excuses and forcing yourself into servitude in areas that don't feel right. Let's try to get away from that. Let's honor our truths and hopefully get involved into systems that look better. And if they aren't there, let's build them and make them. Because we can. We just have to really burn the boats, so there's no other way. And I mean that in the most non-lethal, non-violent, non-aggressive way possible as a metaphor speaking. But yes, it's about time, I feel. So hope that you're feeling the same. Hope you're doing good work in your life. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this level 4 video, the last of the 3 bosses here as we wrap up what exactly makes up the external system here in level 4. I thank you so much for listening as always, and I hope that you will keep back in my channel this coming week to see as I turn and present the external system as a whole, and we can just talk more about really some diagrams and some infographics about what's happening with the external system as a whole. So I hope you'll tune in for that soon, and I will be sure to see you next time. Thanks.